can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.
All right, everybody. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. Welcome all to Jumpstart Masteries Live at 5, where today the topic couldn't be more timely. Media amplification and polarization. Welcome all. I hope that my thoughts today on this topic lend some value to you in how to make sense of a rapidly changing world and how we consume information and how we process information and how we talk about information that's coming through our social media feeds and in other forms of news media. There's no shortage of people talking about this. We talk about topics through the lens of crisis de-escalation. That's what makes us unique. We're not here to just render commentary about a particular topic or item, but rather we're here to lend some context and understanding about these topics in the crisis de-escalation context. Welcome all. It's great to be back in the Northwest. I was in Texas last week visiting one of my daughters and had a wonderful experience attempting our de-escalation method on a longhorn steer. There's a cute video of that on my LinkedIn page if you want to check that out. It was kind of fun to do that. But back to the cold and wet in the Northwest, where there's let's just say a lot of struggle going on with people in need and homelessness and ICE running around, and a lot of people getting outspoken about that one way or another. And consequently, we're also in legislative session. So there's a lot of media amplification and consequently polarization about things that are moving through the legislature. So, my great friend and colleague, Tony Blauer, is fond of this phrase, violence loves speed. And he has a very particular context in which he discusses that. But the essential of that phrase is that the nervous system, particularly the sympathetic nervous system, and its reactivity loves speed. So let's talk a little bit about why our media shapes its messaging the way that it does. And I'll try to analogize it to the experiences that human beings can have based on certain kinds of stimulus. When you feel angry or irritated, do you feel as though your thoughts become simpler to explain or more complex? Is it harder to describe what you're thinking and feeling when you're angry, or is it easier? The data would suggest that diversity of thought and expression is not available when we're angry or irritated. So consequently, we are compelled to reduce our sophistication in how we express what we're feeling. In other words, the availability of vocabulary or nuanced language goes offline when we become angry or irritated. And we are reduced to more, I'll use this word, primitive language and modes of expression to communicate. It's what we normally find when someone is presenting crisis and we're there to bring de-escalation. The manner in which thoughts are articulated when we are experiencing anger and aggression is extremely constricted by the nervous system. Why? because all of the diversity of language and its accessibility becomes diminished. That's not my opinion. That's the science of how the limbic system works. You're not doing your best speech making when you feel offended. You're not doing your best calculus when you're afraid that you're not going to complete the test in the time prescribed. What might be the emotional state that someone is experiencing if they feel as though they don't have enough time to complete this test? What emotions might they be feeling under that pressure? Shame, possibly, that they're not measuring up to the standard. Fear that not completing the test is going to result in a bunch of negative outcomes. When those things happen, the diversity of your calculus brain that you need to do for this test right now is diminished. This is the survival wiring of the human nervous system. If I want to deliberately get someone to accept, let's say I have an agenda. I have an agenda that I want someone to follow. I want to influence them to follow it, coerce them to follow it. I have limited time to do it. Get them angry. Speak language to the nervous system that's going to stimulate them to high emotional arousal. And once that's accomplished, reduce the language's sophistication to simple words and terms that people can hold on to. You hearing me on this? If I want someone to believe something, I want to coerce them into believing it. Do you think, if I want to be effective at that and I have limited time, do you think that I'm going to lead them down a road of comprehensive strategy where they come into the dignity of their own insight about my lofty idea? Or am I going to try to stimulate their nervous system so that sensory thalamus sends a signal to the amygdala? The amygdala is going to send out signals for the production of glucose, cortisol, adrenaline. And then once that occurs, I can begin to fuel that limbic system activity with simple ideas that cause someone to stay there. How much time do we have in some of these social media pieces to consume information and arrive at a nuanced conclusion? Does the internet prove that shorter form reels capture more attention than longer form reels? 5-second bites, 10-second bites. Look at the commercials that we have now on streaming services, on television, and as you're watching a feed where you'll see an intermission for a brief commercial. These commercials now are 5 and 6 seconds. Do you hear a lot of sophisticated, nuanced language in those time frames? No. You hear very condensed, reductionary ideas to stimulate images. Media amplification and polarization works because it stimulates the limbic system. There are dopaminergic reasons that this happens, that there are people far better qualified to talk about than me. There are strategies, interpersonal neurobiological strategies that marketing people leverage to get you to witness content. These things are going on. Amplification of a message can occur by fueling the sympathetic nervous system with the most reductionary ideas that are available about the topic. Well, Andy, give me an example of that. How about, let's take a moment to talk about what's capturing the media right now. I'm confident, there's millions of pages, for example, that have been released to the public about the Epstein files. Are the ideas that we see in these short reels fully encapsulate the 3 million pages? Or do they harp on basic instinct ideas? Sex, abuse, neglect, mistreatment. Boom, boom, boom. The big headlines are designed to jumpstart, no pun intended, the sympathetic nervous system. You're not hearing a lot of sophisticated commentary about this. Now, I'm not saying there isn't any. Of course there is. You're seeing testimony come out, and you can watch 30 minutes of this person testifying or 30 minutes of that testifying. But I'm talking about when you want to amplify and polarize people. The strategy is not through sophisticated, nuanced language. It is through primitive images that stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. This is why violence loves speed. The nervous system is wired for speed. The nervous system is wired for quick reaction. Why? Our survival can depend on it. When there is noxious stimulus with suddenness and speed, do you have a 30-minute debate about throwing your hands up and turning your head away from danger? No. Those are relay circuitries that we have in our spine and in our musculature that enable that to happen without you debating yourself on whether you should do it or not. If we have that kind of wiring, do you think that actually can't be exploited by a news agency or a marketing agency? Of course it can. Our system of, look, I'll tell you this right now. Some of the sexiest social media content that gets extraordinary views is gun content on Instagram, for example. And I am a shooter. I enjoy recreational shooting, competitive shooting, and I'm actively involved in the shooting sports. Do you think that the appeals of, let's say, competitive shooting regard the games, or do they go right to winning, distinction, bragging rights? Who has the coolest pistol? Who has the most expensive pistol? Who manages recoil the best? The ideas in all of that media around gun culture, for example, go right to the heart of identity and nervous system. I've long pondered, why is it in trying to create a community of people interested in de-escalation that we can't do it as quickly as some of these other kinds of markets, like firearms or even food? Those things speak to the survival circuitry of the human being. Discussions about the diversity of thought and expression are not simple. Discussions about de-escalation are not particularly simple. The ideas may be simple. The discussion about it is not. Because what comes naturally is generally the opposite of what de-escalation is. So it takes more time. So it's not surprising that it's taken years for us at Jumpstart to develop the number of people that are in our community now, because we have to keep constantly revisiting this very important idea that what comes natural under stress is not, generally speaking, what to do. What needs to be done is something that is trained. And that training is generally more than a 2-hour in-service. We have to cover a number of very, very important principles as a foundation before we get to skills. We have to talk about how the nervous system works and make sure that people have an understanding of that. We have to talk about what self-regulation is and impart to someone ways to acquire it, to invite them on a journey. We have to review the history of why this is taking so long. This is not something that's learned overnight. So, my encouragement to all of you, if you find yourself scrolling and feeding into the 20-second and 30-second clips, there's research coming out now where you're actually damaging your ability to engage in complex cognition. You're engaging in something that's feeding the dopaminergic and the adrenaline system. We are looking for the next high through the use of this. Our media machines understand this principle in how they construct their messaging about whatever the topic is. My encouragement, as you are able to, is to disengage from simple explanations of complex issues, withdraw from the trap of reducing something down to something that your nervous system likes in the limbic sense, and that might cause you either a real icky feeling after consuming it or something that activates your anger. And instead, try your best to step back from that and explore more information, more data. Suspend your desire to arrive at a conclusion because it's convenient. Live with more uncertainty. Postpone your final conclusion, your definitive conclusion. And take your mind back. Take your diversity of thought back. How do you generally feel after you scroll? Do you feel wiped out, or do you feel encouraged to go read the Iliad or Gone with the Wind or Dostoevsky? Do you feel inspired to go do that after scrolling? Probably not. I know what happens after I scroll. I got to go eat something. I generally don't feel real good, but I feel the call to go back to that, just like any other human being. And especially with the content that's floating around the world right now. War, Epstein, UFOs. These things are incredibly stimulating to the sympathetic nervous system. Take your mind back. Take your agency back. Get into long-form discussions. Lean into the not knowing everything in 30 seconds. Be willing to suspend what you think until you feel fully informed. And have a potential at greater self-peace about all that's going on. I feel better and more at peace when I'm not online. And right now, the strategy is who's got it first and who can communicate the idea in the simplest, almost crudest way to get resonation with it. That's the best I can offer. I hope that this has been meaningful to you. Take good care of your nervous system. Take good care of your neocortex and your diversity of thought and expression. I've begun monitoring my blood pressure, not only for health reasons, but to just manage my understanding of patterns in my state day to day. And I have found that particularly useful because it reminds me of the need to de-stress. It reminds me of the need to take my agency back, to not surrender it to the media. I hope that this has been useful. I wish you all of the best. We'll see you on Thursday at Jumpstart Mastery podcast.com at 4 p.m. Take good care.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
More that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.